For more on this, we are now being joined by Dave Grunenbaum, who is joining us from Philippines, and he is a journalist and has been serving in Myanmar for several years. Dave, good to see you and welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Now, the junta has admitted to conducting airstrikes. Several leaders and organizations, including the United Nations, have called for accountability. Will the junta military be accountable, or will it respond to these, suggestions by the organizations to come clear about their strikes?
Highly unlikely they're going to stop these airstrikes, because that's where they have the advantage. Keep in mind, as you were talking about before, so much of the rural areas, most overwhelming majority of the rural areas in this country are controlled by the resistance. And the army, they are spread way too thin, fighting on so many different fronts, and they have lost scores and scores of troops. So the air power, where they have the fighter jets and the helicopter gunships, that's where the army has the advantage, because right now the resistance doesn't really have the weapons to take them down. So the air power is what the army is really resorting to, because their troops have suffered such huge losses. But the army, they don't just use this air power to go after resistance fighters. Going after civilians, targeting civilians has been something they've been doing for decades, even long before the coup from 2 years ago, when they were fighting armed ethnic insurgents. So they continue to fight now. But they use this, they're trying to terrorize the civilian population, basically sending the message that if you have any connection to the resistance movement, you could be next. But
Dave,
here's the thing, it is completely backfiring, because it is just strengthening the resolve of the resistance movement. These photographs, these videos of what took place in Sagaing yesterday, that is circulating across the country. People are seeing these images and they are just infuriated by it. It is only strengthening their resolve against the resistance.
Dave, are you trying to say that these airstrikes will continue?
Absolutely, they're going to continue. Without a doubt, they're going to continue, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, we'll see what the future says, but the army isn't going to listen to what the UN says. They've ignored what the UN has told them in the past. That will continue. Definitely expect more airstrikes, because, as I said, that's where the army has the advantage right now.
Dave, despite the attacks, ethnic minority armies and resistance fighters continue their campaigns. What are they, vouching for, pushing for?
Well, they're against this coup. They want an end to the coup. Keep in mind, a lot of these armed ethnic insurgent groups, you've got People's Defense Forces that were created after the coup. Often many young people, university students, young professionals in their 20s, who went into the jungles to get training in guerrilla warfare after the coup. But even long before this coup, going back for decades, Myanmar has had armed ethnic insurgent groups, minority armed ethnic insurgent groups, who are in the areas where the natural resources are, and they were tired of, being under this Burmese majority dominated by the army and reaping the rewards from the areas where their natural resources are. These fighters, they want to have more autonomy in the areas where they live. They've now united. Many of these armed ethnic groups have united with the People's Defense Forces. They want an end to the military government. They want to bring in a democracy, and they want to put in some of these areas. They would give some of these different minority groups, these pockets of the countries where the minorities are the majority, give them more autonomy than they've had traditionally.
Dave, it's been 2 years since the military coup. How would you gauge the leadership of the military junta?
Well, they never thought they were going to be in for this type of fight. When they staged this coup on February 1st of 2021, there is absolutely no way they thought that they would be in for this kind of a fight. They didn't realize that the resistance would be able to mobilize like this, that so many people were against them, that so many young people would go into the jungles to get training in guerrilla warfare, that they would mobilize. There are factories in areas controlled by the resistance and armed ethnic groups that are producing firearms. There are also weapons that are being smuggled in smuggled across the border. They come in through Thailand into the resistance areas. They never thought that they could mobilize. People in the resistance have learned to take drones and put explosive devices on them to drop them over military targets. They never thought that they would be facing this tough a fight. So the junta, in fact, there were leaked documents where the army basically acknowledged in a private meeting amongst junta leaders, senior army members, where they realized that they had just lost control of so much of the rural areas. So the junta is clearly worried about the situation that they're in, but do keep in mind, they do generally hold the urban areas. They generally control the urban areas of the country. And of course, they've got a lot more firepower than the resistance has right now.
All right, a lot of insights. We'll have to leave this discussion here. Thank you very much, Dave.
Sure thing.
Grunebaum, a journalist and also who has been serving in Myanmar for several years. Thank you for talking to WION World is One. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.